Who are you?
Well, I'm Patty Brennan, and I am a graduate of 2005. Uh, that's when I finished my PhD, and I am now a research professor at UMass Amherst. So, when I first arrived, I had just been working on marine mammals in Colombia. And I came in originally thinking that maybe I would try to do something with marine mammals. But after I got here, it was very clear that birds were actually really a big strength of this department, and that there were a lot of people studying birds, and that was a good idea for me to find a system where I could do that instead. And so I switched to birds very easily, actually. And I was a student with Steve Emlen and Paul Sherman. So I ended up studying tinamous. It's interesting because I hadn't actually taken a formal ornithology class before. And I didn't really know a lot about birds other than, I'm from Colombia, and so we do have a lot of birds. But it was funny because literally what happened is I opened the Birds of Colombia book, and the first family is family Tinamity. And I started reading, and it said, these birds are very diverse and lots of species, and they have this weird exclusive male parental care, and they lay these crazy color eggs, but we don't really know very much about them because nobody studies them. And I thought, oh, that sounds good. I do tinamous, no problem. And of course, I came upstairs to tell Steve that I had found the birds that I wanted to study. And he started laughing at me. And he said, it's so clear you don't know anything about birds, because if you knew anything, you would know the tinamous are just too hard and you don't want to study that for a PhD. But I was pretty determined because I felt that not knowing much about birds to begin with, if I really wanted to jump in a system where people were already studying it, it would have been too hard, like it would have been digging through papers and papers and papers and trying to catch up with other groups. Whereas the tinamous really, literally nobody was doing anything with. So it felt like it would be easy for me to quickly become an expert, and that's exactly what I set out to do. So I have to say that I was really nervous at the beginning, particularly because I had never taken classes in English, for example. All my classes had always been in Spanish. And so I didn't know, am I even going to be able to sit there and take notes in a different language and be comfortable and learn? I was always a very good student back at home. And so I wanted to be able to do that still in a different language. And it was amazing because I actually found a very supportive environment. I had wonderful TAs in all the classes that I taught, and I pestered them constantly. So that was great. And it was really, everybody just always was cheering me on, and everybody always made me feel like they trusted that I could make it, that I was capable of doing well. Particularly my colleague graduate students at the time. They were just unbelievable. I mean, they edited my papers and my grant proposals, and they helped me with my assignments in classes when I was confused about something. So they were absolutely wonderful. So it was a very supportive environment from the peers. I did well. We had to take neurobiology as a class as students when I was here. And so I enrolled in the class officially, and I absolutely loved it. It was wonderful, and it was just incredible. It was very similar to the style of animal behavior, where you had different professors teaching different parts of the class. And I was fascinated by it, and I always went to all the seminars. I didn't actually end up doing anything particularly mechanistic then. I am doing a lot of it now, and actually going back to becoming interested in hormones and brain differences. But I wasn't doing that while I was here. But I think that part of the reason why I can now read papers on this topic and actually figure out collaborations with people who do these more in depth is because I was here, honestly, and I got exposed to all of it. And I was at a place where it's just done in an absolutely wonderful way. So I could see how it was beneficial, and I think that was a great advantage. So what I study now is I study sexual conflict, and I'm interested in looking at how these evolutionary disagreements between males and females result in big consequences, especially in morphology. And one of the things I've been looking at is I've been studying genitalia. And as it turns out, genitalia are really, where the rubber meets the road, right? So it's where, so to speak, because this is where a lot of these interactions between males and females really happen very directly. And so they are a very productive ground to look at these effects of evolution by sexual conflict. And I've been looking in great detail at different aspects of genitalia, everything from their morphology to their function, of course, their ultimate consequences of differences in genital differences, and mechanisms of how they work. Seasonal differences in hormone levels, and then also becoming more interested in looking at differences between males and females when they use different strategies during these conflict interactions. Well, I would say certainly take advantage of the integrative aspect of the department, but without losing focus of what you're really interested in. In other words, I don't think it's necessarily a very good idea to devote a lot of time to everything and not enough time to one thing, right? So keep your focus, but at the same time, take advantage of the immersion in a broad range of questions as they relate to behavior. So I think that's good. The other one is, unlike actually what happened when I was here, certainly with the current environment, is do try to publish as much as you can as you go along. And that is tough. Can be a little tough when you have this one big project that you want to do. So you have to really partition your research in smaller packets that you can write up quickly and get out into the world, because the competition right now is so much so that you really need to get your work out there if you're going to be competitive. But finally, I think the best advice I can give is just make sure you're doing whatever you're passionate about, right? So I have continued to do science, and I will continue to do science for the foreseeable future because I really love it. I'm really passionate about it. I dedicate all my time to it when I'm, awake and alert. So I think that says a lot about what I want to do with my life. That's not the case for everybody. So there are people who discover that maybe their passion lies elsewhere. And I think that is a good thing to know about yourself, and it's absolutely fine to move on and find ways to use what you learn about science while you're a PhD in making change in other places. And that's a really good thing. So, if this is not what you're really driven to do for the rest of your life, then it's fine to do something else. Just make sure that you find what you really like. Yes. Now, that's certainly something else that both my husband and I have very consciously done in our lives, and that is we wanted to have a family, and we wanted to be a part of our family, raising our kids and really being a part of their lives. And so we have made decisions that have reflected what our priorities are. And I think that some of it has been difficult, certainly academically and professionally, but personally has been incredibly satisfying. And so I think that trying to find that balance of doing enough both as a parent and as an academic is tough. And I wish I could say that I have been able to do that. I really haven't. I think that it goes like this, right? So you spend a lot of time doing one thing sometimes and a lot of time doing something else at other times. And you're hoping that in the end everything will turn out all right. But that's just the way it goes. So I had a really wake-up call, if I can call it that, last year, when I was very pleased with the direction in which my research was going. I was getting a lot of attention in the press, always very positive. And then I found myself in the middle of a media storm, really, when a very extreme right-wing media site picked up on my research and essentially started a snowball effect of criticizing the government for spending $400,000 on Doug Pino's research. That was really the headline. And this was extremely difficult because, of course, I was completely unprepared to deal with this kind of negative attention. And it highlighted two big things for me. The first is that it highlighted how little most people know about the science budget and really how little money we get to do science in this country. And the second one is just that these attacks actually succeed because they depend on the ignorance of the general public. And this is why they're politically viable, is because people don't understand why, somebody would be interested in studying weird duck penises, or why do we study snail sex, or animal thinking, or, the kinds of questions that pop up in the media all the time. And these are legitimate questions that we should be able to answer, and answer properly and constantly every time we talk about our research. And I think that we as scientists, because we live in this academic bubble with like-minded people all the time who are just saying, oh, your research is so cool, what you do is so interesting, we forget that this is not what the majority of the public in the US is like. So I think we really have a responsibility to reclaim the importance of our science, particularly as organismal science, which is the part that gets attacked most of the time. And just essentially educate people about why what we do is important. And that's a hard question, for us to answer, right? Like, I had to really stop for a minute and say, yes, wait a minute, why do I study duck penises, other than in the context of this cool evolutionary question that I can answer? I need to be able to put that in terms that most people will support and understand. And that's not an easy task, but I think that is an absolutely crucial thing that we're going to have to do if we want our science to continue to move forward. So I'm very committed right now to trying to spread the message around with my colleagues, essentially for why this is important, and then giving them some ideas on strategies that I think we can use in order to achieve that ultimate goal of having people really understand that science is not really an expense, is really an investment. And knowing that we do have all this data to back that up, and be able to quote that when somebody is being critical about what we do. So that's essentially what I'm doing now.